let's practice labeling this drawing. And I'm going to come back to figure 14.3. Actually, I think I'm going to do it in, yeah, 14.3. I may use 14.2 and 14.4. No, here's a good one. I like 14.3. This is on page 543. So let's say that, page 543. There's several of these that are good. All right. So we've got this and this. So let's just start at the top. The Dura Mater. I don't really like starting there, but okay. So the Dura Mater in this case is going to be this part down here. This is the Dura Mater, so I'm just going to say that's A. So it's going to be this hard, tough covering here. Under that, this kind of looks like a little spider web. That's going to be the Arachnoid Mater. So I'm just labeling these with letters. You can label them with the actual statements or names if you want to. And then, does it say subarachnoid? No. So this space that's under here, this is the subarachnoid space. You don't want to get bleeding through there. That's very bad. Next, the Pia Mater. That would be this really thin covering here. So this thing, and so you can see this little space. So this is the Pia Mater. So as we're peeling back the layers, so Dura Mater, Arachnoid Mater, Pia Mater. So it's not the blood vessel, it's the actual wrapping. Now, the gray commissure. See if I can find it. We may come back to that one. All right, the central canal, that's this one. Oh, the gray commissure, that's this part of the H. There it is. The central canal, that's the hole in the middle. Columns of white matter, that would be these things, so the white matter. All right, so the posterior, that's going to be in the back. So here's posterior, here's anterior. So the posterior horn, that's going to be the part of the gray matter right here. So that's a G. The posterior root is not on this side. So here's the posterior horn going on out. Here's the posterior root. That would be this. The bundle of axons. Here is the ganglion, where those cell bodies of the axons are. The lateral horn, so this must be a lumbar portion. That's going to be this little horn here. So that's a J. The anterior horn, that's going to be in the front. That's a K. So let's follow this anterior horn on out. So here's the front. That would be this part. So here's the anterior root. I'm going to draw that like a cursive L so it doesn't look like a 1 or my I. And then the spinal nerve is this part where they come together, the anterior root and the posterior ganglion right there. So that's going to be the spinal nerve. And again, that's based on this portion, lower portion of 14.3 on page 543. Now, let's go over here. And in our textbook, this is not 14.5, this is 14.4, and it is on page 545. So we're going to use some on the right side. So sensory somatic or somatic sensory, visceral motor, and somatic motor. So that's going to be correspond to these things here. So remember, in the posterior here, this is gathering sensory information. So that would be somatic sensory information. Goes to the ganglia connected. This information then goes to your other visceral sensory neurons here. So somatic sensory, visceral sensory in here. Down here you're going to have your visceral motor, so your autonomic nervous system, and here you're going to have your somatic motor, which also corresponds with skeletal muscle. Easy to remember that. So there, those are the shaded regions. Now let's go with everything over here. So the posterior horn, that's going to be this. This is number 1, posterior horn. Now, the posterior root, that would be this one. Does it carry sensory or does it carry motor information? So posterior is always sensory information. These are axons. Here, when you get to this bulb area, that's going to be the ganglion, your posterior ganglion. Now, your somatic sensory neuron, this is teal, which corresponds here. So that's going to be this one. This is a dark blue visceral sensory. This is a darker blue. You may not be able to see it there. The anterior horn, that would be this part up here. So that's number 6. And it sends out, so here these are cell bodies, here's axons, sends out axons to the anterior root. And that's going to send things through, if it's yellow, corresponds to the yellow. So that would be your visceral motor, autonomic, so stuff that you don't have to think about. And then your skeletal muscle is going to be down here. And there's not an arrow. There it is. Yeah, there's the arrow for where your anterior root and your posterior root come together to form the spinal nerves. So it helps to be in color. So here's this, page 545 for reference.